What's up, everybody? Just waiting for Dan to come on, and we'll add him and get going. This is basically going to be more of an actual interview style than what we typically do on these lives. So more or less, you're going to hear a live thing of the podcast, and hopefully the goal will be to extract the audio from this and put it out possibly as an actual podcast, since it'll be more podcast based. Just so anyone watching this doesn't think I'm just ignoring everybody. There it is. I will be looking at my questions that I have, because I actually take the time to prep and ask questions. So if you see me looking up like that, I'm not being weird or ignoring whoever. I'm reading the questions that I have that are up here. So just waiting on Dan, or Daniel, Danny. It's been weird. In some of the research I did, it looked like a lot of people were calling him by various names. So I wasn't even necessarily sure what the what he likes to be called. There we go. And since he actually just posted or reshared the Instagram story thing, I don't know that he knows that it's going on now. I was told 12:30. I know he doesn't live here in the States, so I don't know time zone wise how that's going to work out, but give it a few more minutes. Worst case, I will text a publicist, and nope, there he is. Cool. Boom. Turn that off then.
What up, brother? Sorry to keep you waiting.
How you doing?
All good, man. How are you?
This is kind of weird, because usually when I do these, I've at least interviewed, or I know the person a little bit more than this. So this is going to be because typically these are super spontaneous, and this one, because I think I'm going to try to extract the audio from this and turn it into a podcast. It's going to be more podcast based.
Yeah, cool. Well, I'll try and give you a bit of an insight into me, so then you know a bit more.
Well, it's just, I don't know. I always feel like there's, because doing the in-person thing, even though we're doing it via a electronic medium as opposed to an actual in-person, I always feel like at least it creates more of an actual sense of conversation, because you're able to read each other's body language and not cutting each other off as much. So
yeah, for sure, man. Like, I'm keen.
All right. Well, I mean, shit. I got the record yesterday, probably around 5 p.m. my time, so I haven't even had it a full 24 hours, but holy shit, this thing is mad. It comes out Friday. Cannibal comes out Friday, July 3rd via Nation Sony Music. Obviously, we're a few days away from dropping. How are you feeling currently about it?
I just want it to drop now. So, actually, as you can tell, my smile when you said you had it was great, because I just want people to hear it now. One of the worst parts about being in a band is actually that horrible waiting period where you get like the record back and you kind of go, oh my god, like I just want you to hear it. I want the fans to hear it, and the most important people to hear it. The people that actually matter, and that's always an elongated time anyway, let alone the craziness that is the world at the moment in time. So the fact that we've had an elongated period of time that, it's supposed to come out in April, it's come out now. And, we're just really eager, man. Like, it's been like 6 months since we recorded this record. So that's not a short amount of time to have anticipation. So the fact that it's coming out, I'm nothing but stoked. The sleeps are not happening at the moment. I'm just desperate for it to come out, really. So, yeah.
I think the thing that's been really interesting, having a lot of friends who are in the touring industry, and just knowing how times it takes for when you record something to act out. I know in some instances, like I was talking with Jesse Switch, and he was talking about how the record was sat for a year and done it. Yeah. Like sometimes that's a story by the time you're already like, dude, I'm fucking over that, and I'm ready here for another year or two.
Oh man, there's nothing worse, dude. Like honestly, he's absolutely right. Jesse's right. I mean, Jesse's king, so you can't argue with that man. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I think, as I said, it's always a difficult period of time. But the fact that ours was kind of extended, I'm just checking that my dog's not destroying my entire house. That's why I'm walking around the house. I'm not just giving you a sweet tour of the crib. No, I'm just checking my dog isn't destroying everything, but she's not, so that's great. Yeah, so I think, you know, it's worth the wait once it's all out and people can hear it. And I think it just makes it, it's like anything, isn't it? Once you get there, you're kind of like, oh, what was I complaining about the wait for? Because it's pretty sweet that everyone's enjoying it now, so it's all good.
Did you feel like the success of Black Flame really took the band, and as such put a lot of extra on you to set the bar even higher for what you were capable of?
Yeah, yes and no. So I think, you know, when you've been in a band as long as we have, like we're 15 years in the game, like we're not some spring chickens that worried about our kind of our fan base suddenly diminishing because we released a song that was slightly off the wall, you know. And also in the fact that, you know, our band very much loves the music that we play. We absolutely love metalcore music, or the old school form of that, you know, Killswitch Engage, As I Lay Dying, Darkest Hour, In Flames, all of those kind of bands, Unearth, the list goes on and on of great metalcore bands. I think, you know, from us, we harked back to that generation, that 2006, 2007 metalcore. And so if we continue playing that, there's almost less risk, because you're kind of like, well, I'm just going to play the music we love and know that our fans love. And we're really, I suppose, one of our kind of positives of our band, like a big one, is that we're really connected with our fans. You know, we love our fans. Everyone will say they love their fans, but we love our fans. We absolutely, everything we do is to try and, you know, mold our music into what they want to hear. We're not playing for ourselves. Like, you know, I'd probably be, if I was playing for myself, in some kind of deathcore, like hardcore in some like hardcore, like probably sludgy band that is really heavy. But, you know, we're not that. I'm not playing for myself. I'm playing for the fact that I love metalcore music, and people seem to really connect with something that we're doing. So you just got to keep moving. So the pressure, I suppose, going back to your question, is always there when you're in a professional band, because also you want to get bigger. I don't want to not get bigger. I want to get bigger and play to more people and tour around the world again. And like, so, but for this one being such like an introspective album and like a personal album, the pressure kind of was alleviated anyway, because it was like, well, Black Flame was Black Flame, and it'll always be Black Flame. There's nothing that I can do that's ever going to change that being Black Flame. But this is just something new. It's a different chapter, you know?
Yeah, you'll see way after the kind of internalized the fact they were like, yeah, there was a lot of pressure, because, you know, when something like Black Flame happens, and kind of start achieving more mainstream success, and maybe within the industry as well, and you're starting to go from like this level, now you're kind of up here, then the goal from a label perspective starts going, well, you guys really need to kind of hit this next level, and we need that single, we need that big song. And so the pressures come from somewhere else other than you sometimes, which then in turn starts making you second guess everything you're doing. So that's kind of, I guess, more where I kind of was like, was there more pressure from outside influences maybe?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's really hard to objectively look at that. I think you can only look at that when you're outside of it. So maybe if you asked me that question 6 months from now, it would be a case of being like, yeah, there's loads of pressure, man. Like, but, you know, you just go for the ride, you know, like I know that sounds really like altruistic or like, you know, hippie, but like for me, that is it. You know, it's just about making music. And when we get in the studio, I'm not thinking, I wouldn't be able to do what I do if I was thinking like, oh my God, what did the label think about this? Like, it's just not what we're about. We're a metal band. We're rock and roll. Like, what we're about is 5 dudes getting in a room and banging out some riffs. And that's really the base level of it. So I think people can get really hung up on like, what's the next step and what's the next transition and what's going to make us the next big thing. And like, you know what, if you have a fan base, like that's all you need. All you need is to look at your fan base, look where their mindset's going, look where they're kind of what the finger on the pulse is. You know, by no means have we stayed in that kind of 2006 metalcore era. Like, we don't sound like those bands. Like, yeah. But we're influenced by those bands. But we can look at what is current, what music people want to hear, and that's kind of what we've focused on in our career each time. You know, and what's worked and what hasn't worked. So the pressure on us is to kind of weed out the stuff that we personally, as musicians, kind of look back on and go, yeah, maybe that didn't connect as well as we thought it was going to connect. Because you can always make mistakes, man. I'm sure I'll think about it's hard, because I think this is the as perfect current Very Tomorrow as you're ever going to get. There was nothing I'd change on it right now. But you ask me that question 6 months from now, and I guarantee you there'll be parts that I go, that didn't connect as well, you know?
You know, with this being your second record that you've done with Dan Weller, what is it about him that seems to kind of bring the best out in you guys?
You know, Dan's like, the thing with Dan is that we actually worked with Dan on our first album, Portraits, as well, he was under Weller Hill production, so people don't really know it's him, but we worked with him in on our first record, Portraits, and we've known him in the band Sixth. He plays for the band Sixth, and they're just ridiculously talented at what they do. Tech metal band, like, just absolutely phenomenal. One of UK's shining heroes of metal when they were, you know, at their heyday, and they continue to obviously make music. But, you know, we respected him, and I think that's really important. We knew he was a musician in his own right, not only just a producer. And he is one of the best guitarists I've ever seen play riffs. Yeah, I mean, Black Flame worked. There was a lot of great moments there, and I think for us, like, he is a great songwriter. So having his input, not necessarily like writing songs for us, but like being part of the pre-production period of time to kind of say, repeat that, guys, that's good stuff. And, like, you know, it would be great to have anybody. You know, I could have anyone on this live stream. I could sit and kind of say, what do you think of this song? And they go, as an objective view, I think that, or I think that, which would be really helpful. But then having someone like that is also an expert songwriter in his own right, and a metal musician, I mean, you're on for a winner really there. And he's also very, very anal when it comes to, like, sounds, which is really, really important. And obviously this record, we moved to having Nolly mix it, which, if you've heard Architect's albums, you know Nolly. He is a phenomenal producer and mixer. He's next level. So, like, having those as a double team is just, it was the archetypal pairing for sure.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that's kind of getting interesting about metal and metalcore and stuff like that, is you're starting to, maybe some of the purists are going to hate it because it's overproduced in a sense, but I think, to me, what I love about it is it's produced in such a way where you can hear clarity.
Yeah, man.
You know, the thing, you know, I remember the old, like, you know, I was like, stuff like that. Everything sounded good, but then certain producers, or, you know, Will Putney, or even now, like, DL, and you're getting people who come from this genre and know it so well.
Yeah.
Modern production, it sounds better than it ever had. And to me, that's what's got me excited about being a metal fan now, is that, like, I feel like now we're kind of getting metal records that sound like pop.
Yeah, no,
I love that.
Yeah, I'd agree that, man. I think you're absolutely right. I think, how can you not have respect for people that are playing the music that they're producing? You know, that just, it seems to make sense on paper, but it has not necessarily been a thing. But also, we have to be really mindful as a band, you know, not to just wind up being some crusty old band that doesn't believe in the newfangled ways. You know, we just record on tapes and stuff like that. And it's like, well, you know, there's a realism of there that kids' ears are changing. You know, the newer generations want to hear certain elements of overproduction, or, you know, and it's not overproduction anymore. What I thought was overproduction back in the day certainly isn't overproduction now. It's production. So, yeah. You know, and when you look back at, you know, people like Will's work, Will kind of blends the line. I think Zeus blends the line massively with, like, what he does, certainly with someone like the Acacia Strain stuff. And I think he's done some Die Art stuff maybe, but no, Will Putney did that. But then you know, you had I suppose you had an era, I think, and it's a disrespectful term to say, but I'm going to say it anyway, is that it was kind of an American Americanism of production really that came in around the 2010 period of time, where it was really produced. I'm talking strings going off left, right, and center, and dance tracks and all sorts of stuff going on. And that really wasn't like a thing in the UK. You know, there was some smaller bands doing it, but it wasn't like a, you know, that wasn't a recognized metal music. It just wasn't. So, and that's not necessarily to say it was a bad or good thing. I think we had to go through certain transitional periods to actually recognize that having tracks and having an album, you know, playing a live song, live set, which sounds like an album, is generally a good thing. And so, you know, we went through a period of time where we were like, no tracks, nothing. We don't even play the clip because we're rock and roll and that's cool. And then get to a period of time where you go, that's absolute nonsense. You just want to sound, you want to sound good. And, you know, and I will be loath if I ever put vocals on a track or I ever put guitars on a track, because I think that's, don't know, it's a little bit too far for me, but and this band. But you know, I respect people that do their thing, and if kids are buying it, if kids are into it, they're more power to people really doing it. But yeah, it's just really important, I think, to just recognize how far you can go without kind of selling your soul to being younger, because also there's an element of cringy. If I just started being like, right, I'm going to play all the music that those 18-year-olds do, I think people would call me out for it and go, you're too old, Dan.
Yeah, definitely a little bit of that. And sometimes, you know, you see some of these bands reunion or anniversary tours, and you're just kind of like, some of this doesn't. You know, actually, a great one was Falling in Reverse, Me As You, and you know, Ronnie even and himself, he goes, I am not the same 10 years ago when I wrote this. Like, I feel cringy saying this shit to like little tweens.
Yeah, that's the problem, man. Like, when you're in a band that's been a band for a long time, you got to be very, very careful about what you put out. So, and that's not anything about, you know, your ethics or morality, because generally there's a lot of scumbags out there in music, and they deserve to be called out for being scumbags. But just generally, like, man, I look back at, you know, I was a kid when I joined this band. I was 16 years old. Was touring Europe when I was just 16, 17. Like, it was all new, and I look back at some of the videos we did and I'm like, oh my god, that was the worst thing I ever put out in the world. But you know, at the end of the day, it's a learning journey, you know. And I think if some fans have been with you for that amount of time, it almost connects you even further, you know, because people are just like, great, you know, I've seen them progress, they've seen us get better at what we do, and hopefully continue to get better as we go forward.
You know, kind of speaking to that, it's been interesting to see how bands in general are able to push their career pro or kind of on the laurels of what they had done previously. I think listening to the last two records, it's pretty obvious that you've chosen to be the former, and a quick look at your Spotify iTunes pages also echoes that sentiment. How does it feel to actually have the newest stuff be the things that are reacting and hitting the most?
Weird. It's like, you know, it's not something I'd sit there and go like I think about it when it's happening, I suppose. Like, I think for whenever we're about to release a record, I'm dumbfounded by the fact that a band of 15 years can be able to have hype. I mean, that's an achievement in itself, and great. And that's, again, it's not achievement for us, it's just an achievement for the fans of metal music that are enjoying it and, you know, and seem to connect with us, because we've not done anything cataclysmic that is like, oh my god, they've completely changed their style and suddenly reinvented metal music. Like, I know what we are. Like, we play metalcore music, and I truly believe that we play it damn well, but like, that's it. You know, I'm not going to make bones about the fact that I scream for a living. That it's an oddity in itself, man. But the fact that people seem to connect with that and we get hype, I mean, I never get over it. You know, I don't understand it. We've not, you know, it's not a concerted effort to suddenly be like, I'm going to flip it so I'm suddenly going to get hype again and be really relevant. You know, we just do us, and we're very lucky, like really lucky. And I think fundamentally there's two aspects of why our band is continued to be successful. And I think three aspects, I suppose, that we've stuck by what we believe in. We make music, and we make it heavy, and we make it fast, and we keep getting heavier, but we keep adding melody in it in inventive ways. We're persistent as anything in that we have continued to be a band through adversity and stuff. But then also the third, and arguably the most important, is we're really lucky, man. Like, we're really lucky. Lots of other bands wouldn't have had situations, and the stars aligned for us to be able to continue doing this for as long as we've done, which is amazing. It's a testament to our fans, for sure.
Kind of speaking a bit more to the record itself, lyrically it dives, headfirst into some serious topics, mental health, as well as some of the effects of social media, and how it plays in our lives, or more to the point, maybe how it's ruining it. Do you feel that making a concern be as direct about what you wanted to be talking about was easier from a writing standpoint, or was it harder knowing that you couldn't behind metaphors anymore?
I think the initial step to do it's the harder. I think the actual, once you start writing, it's like opening Pandora's box. I think you just keep going because, metaphors are hard, man. Like, I'm not gonna lie, writing constant metaphors and hidden behind different things and making it connect with people in a catchy way. I mean, that's a difficult thing to do. So, I think being straight up was nice and cathartic, and it's a healing process for me. Part of my kind of mental health, or depreciating mental health, is part of my kind of conditions are that in talking about it, I can kind of bring myself down or bring myself up, actually, whichever we're talking about, depression or anxiety. Like, I can kind of regulate myself by talking through it logically. So that helps. What bigger forum can you have to talk about mental health than my lyrics? It's huge. And but I think generally making that step for anything, I mean, let's dive into mental health. Like, for anybody, reaching out for help is the hardest step. It's easily the hardest step. It doesn't matter whether it's picking up a phone, talking to your family member, talking to your friend, talking to a band member, seeking kind of counseling or medication or whatever it may be. That step, it can feel like an ocean, and I suppose the lyrics were no different to that. Actually making that step to be like, there's 5 members of this band. This isn't just my personal journey. Like, there's 5 members of this band that have invested time, blood, sweat, and tears into this band. So, I'm always going to be forever grateful for those guys, giving those 4 other dudes, giving me the opportunity to use this, because you kind of touched on it before. It's a hype album, like Black Flame was massive for us, and so to be able to kind of get to a stage where we can like have such an honest conversation where the boys are like, well, at the end of the day, if you're going to do something, don't do it half-assed, and get on and do it, and let's make an album about it. I mean, that's amazing. That shows a lot of trust.
Yeah. Something I think about a lot when fans will come and talk to various bands and so forth that have helped them through rough times, whether it be the music, whether it be the lyrics that they're playing with. And in some instances, they'll go into details about those situations. I've often wondered, is it kind of taxing on you to take on sort of the emotional that people are kind of maybe dumping on you night in and night out when you're working through your own stuff daily?
It can be. Depends where you're at, man. Like, for me, again, it's another part of my kind of healing process is understanding that you're helping people. One of your steps to well-being, whatever way you want to talk it, universally, one of the steps to well-being is actually giving. And, a lot of people think about that being charity work or giving gifts or anything like that. But actually, part of the healing process for people or well-being is actually giving part of yourself to another person, whether it's in a relationship or whether it's your family and time or effort. And that's part of it. When I talk to people and it's emotional and I can give them a good amount of time for them to talk and listen, and that's huge. It's not only huge for them, I'm sure, and I'm hoping it is, and I hope it's a cathartic process for them, but also there's an element that I'm gratified by that. It has a physiological response in my body where I'm like, you know what, like, you're using your time well, and I'm not just being in a band and just sliding through moments like that without any due thought. So that's part. I'm not going to say that suddenly my conversation is going to cure people and make them feel 10 times better, but I think any opportunity for people to kind of, I said before, that step is so hard that maybe that moment is the exact moment that people are like, oh my God, I actually got to speak about it for the first time, and now I can talk about it because I feel comfortable. I mean, it's putting quite a lot of gravity on those conversations, but I'm sure people have been in that way, where they're like, oh, I only felt I could connect with him at that moment because I respected his band. Great. And I take that responsibility not lightly. I really, really take that responsibility seriously in a band. But also there's a massive element, man, like, I have to be well, no doubt about it. I knew coming into this album campaign that I needed to be really well because I'm going to be talking about my mental health or depreciating mental health a lot over this campaign. So that was really important. But you kind of also have to when people are talking to me about their feelings, it's not about me. So if I think it's about me and how it's affecting me, that's when you can get into that weird cycle where you kind of go downwards, where I'm like, oh, how does this affect me? How does that emotionally connect with me? I'm not thinking about that. I'm just thinking, what does this mean to them? You know, and if I frame it in that way, it makes it so much easier to kind of have a constructive conversation with people. And the hard part, man, is that, you know, in a lot of countries that we tour, we don't just tour the UK. In the UK, I could signpost people to places where they need to go and stuff. You know, if I wouldn't have a clue if I came to America or a city, you know, states and state versus state are completely different when it comes to healthcare and the provisions for mental health or counselling. So that's where it gets a bit hard, where you're like, I don't have the information. I can just kind of tell you just to reach out, which is kind of hard sometimes, you know?
Yeah. It seems, and this was kind of I felt shitty writing this question down, but I do feel like it is something I'm noticing more. I haven't really had an opportunity to talk to anyone about it. It seems that a lot of musicians are actually being more vocal about their. Chris from Motionless in White the other day being a great example, talking about what he's been going through with the pandemic and how it's affected him. But I do wonder, it does seem that this is sort of becoming a trend, and I'm wondering if people are trying to cash in on it, or if we're seeing sincerity. And the unfortunate thing is that we're conditioned, because of trends we've come and seen, that's how myself as a fan maybe is looking at it, where I'm like, what's the other side and what's the angle? Because because you don't see a whole lot of people talking about it, then all of a sudden you're seeing an influx of people talking about it, that it sometimes doesn't seem as genuine. Are you noticing that as well?
Yeah, I think you talked yourself through an answer there, really. I mean, it's good, you know, because I think at the end of the day, like, yes, like history has proven that people are, you know, let's be massively honest. Let's call a spade, if we will. Like the band's members have been scumbags. Like that is fact foremost. Like the history of rock and roll has not been marred with positivities. Like, do you know what I mean? It's been marred with people being, you taking people advantage of people, you know, whatever, you know, you want to put it as, you know, music industry in general has been a guilty of taking advantage of people and impressionable people that love your band, you know, however you want to put that, whatever, you know, slant you have on inclusivity, equality, diversity, you know, sexuality, gender, like whatever you want to put that. So that is the history that we have, not only as a human race, but also as musicians. Metal music, take it as an even more derivative, has had to, in the past, use its sway in the media, use its sway and influence to be able to gain more money, because it wasn't the done thing, you know, doing the VIP meet and greets, you know, being rock stars, like, you know, living that life, like that was a part of that game that people were playing, which is wrong. So I think, you know, I know that sounds like a bit of a divert, but that is the history you're, as a fan, thinking about. Like, okay, well, they didn't have depression last album, so why have they got depression now? You know, and I think there's a lot of that, and I think there's a lot of cynicism, rightly so. You should question things, you should. But what you should question it like is in a positive reframe. You should ask questions. When did that happen? How do you feel about that? And, you know, and I think as well, I think you're right to be, suspicious, but not right to be judgmental. You know, if that makes sense. So as you wouldn't be, you know, you're being suspicious, you're asking those questions. I think what is also important is that people create open forums for people to be able to ask questions. So me just putting out an album saying this about my depreciated mental health, saying nothing else about it, I mean, that's not serving a benefit for anything, and that would make you more cynical. So I think it's really important that you address it, you talk about it, you say, well, this is what I was going through, this is when it happened. I can say for Cannibal, say like 4 years ago was when I had a real depreciated mental health and got diagnosed officially. But when I retrospectively look over with lesser than rose-tinted spectacles back in my life, I can kind of say they were points of anxiety or depression or the eating disorder that I had. But I think there's also a thin line really where we should be really supportive of people and human beings. you know. You know, if Chris from Motionless decide, I'm not saying that you were specifically saying that point to Chris, but you know, if he decides that he wants to talk about that point, what we should be more than anything is compassionate about someone that's talking about and that potentially is healing from that. So I think if the world was less cynical and the world was more compassionate and civil, I think we'd be in a better place. You know what I mean? Like, and I think that's really tough. You know, I think it's not an easy thing to do. I'm cynical of people. I see things and go, well, were you really addicted, or were you really suffering? And I'm guilty of it as well. But you know what? That's also not my place. Like, it's not my place.
I think the other thing about it, though, that's a little bit harder at times is sort of the adverse of that, where you were seeing people. I mean, I have no problem saying this because it's so well documented. I mean, you see someone like Johnny Craig. That dude was given so many opportunities to overcome
Okay.
and just consistently lied about it. And I guess that's kind of sort of the verse where you see so many people, and I'm going to just not focusing on musicians, but so many people who, you know, people have tried to help them. People are concerned about them, and they're to accept the help themselves to move forward and become a better them, which then ultimately will be, you know, create a longer life for them. It's one of those where it seems to almost shift, where it's at people where you're like, that person's fucked up, and I know they are. Like, clearly you can see all the things. Like, how many times were we all Scott Weiland being a just stage hammered, fall down drunk, and then when he dies, everyone's like, oh my god, why didn't anyone? You're kind of caught in two worlds where it's like you know, you have someone lying, I'm fine. Well, look at the video, dude. Like, look. Or if you're sober there, no, you're not. But then adversely, you know, when the person passes away, that's when all the people, oh my god, why didn't anyone help him? So you see so much of this in the world now, where it just kind of creates this narrative now where I'm kind of trying to work through it myself, where I'm like, where is the entry point of trying to find empathy and compassion for someone when they don't have any themselves, versus trying to realize that maybe even in recovery or they're getting healthy, it's also not a scam of some sort.
Yeah, man, I think you're right. I think you hit on quite a few different points there. And I think, you know, addiction is one of those things. I think, let's take addiction. And I know you weren't specifically talking about that, but addiction is one of those things that part of the condition is hiding it and lying about it. And it can be really, really tricky, man. There's a lot of shame and baggage when it comes to addiction, whether that's drugs, alcohol, gambling, whatever it is. I think there's a lot of stuff that I have no idea about. I mean, I clearly have an addictive personality, as you clearly do as well. But you know, there's a lot there. There's a lot of unpicking there that I think people, it's really easy for us who haven't felt like that. So I suppose I'd address it in a mental health way as well. And I say, you know, there's nothing more debilitating in this world than being someone that doesn't understand mental health or has never suffered with anxiety or depression, and someone comes to you and go, I'm feeling this way. You know, your first reaction, I guarantee it, if you have never suffered, will be, someone's anxious, I'm worried about this. Well, don't worry about it. Well, that for an anxious person is incredibly horrible. That's coming from a place of compassion, because you're saying, well, I don't know how to, you know, in subconsciously you're going, I don't know how to deal with this. I don't know how to tell someone, you know, what to do because I don't know. So don't worry about it. It's fine. It's fine. It's the worst thing to do. Someone with depression, you know, cheer up. You know, and it's not done because you're trying to, you know, or trying to make them happy or make them laugh. And like, you know, and albeit that can be nice, but it's also really difficult because that's not actually benefiting anyone at that point. So I think it's difficult. I think sometimes you've got to remove yourself from that kind of situation of cynicism. I think there's lots of people that talk the talk when it comes to, you know, when people pass away, well, they shouldn't have been alcoholic, or they shouldn't have taken drugs, or whatever it may be. They've given them so many chances. And I think, you know, at base level, take it back to the fact that tragically someone isn't here anymore, and in their life they didn't take that opportunity, and they didn't have the help that they needed, or whatever it may be that's caused them to not be here anymore. I mean, that fucking sucks, man. Like, that sucks, you know, that someone didn't value themselves enough. And that's fundamentally what it is, to be able to get themselves out of that pit. And no one wants to be an alcoholic, man. No one wants to be a drug addict. No one wants to have to then have all of the means and have all of the opportunity, but have none of the kind of means and drive to do it. Like, no one wants that. You know, you don't want to be viewed in that way. So that's where some of the lying stuff comes from. You know, that's where some of the being shady comes from, because you get into these worlds where you're dealing with shady people, you know. And, you know, and rightly or wrongly, you know, take Johnny Craig, for example. Like, this man is not immersing himself around people that are good people. They're horrible, horrible people. You know, they are drug dealers, and they're idiots, and they're yes men, and, like, you know, and it sucks, you know. It sucks that someone feels like they need that for gratification. And that's what it comes down to, really, at base level, is that people are trying to gratify themselves however they may be. You know, and they do stupid, horrible things sometimes, and that sucks, you know. So I think all we can do is, like, less. I think it's really easy to have an angry, emotive response to when you see shit like that, especially when people are shitty towards fans. I think, which sucks. It makes you feel angry. It makes you feel abused. But I think sometimes we do need to reframe it and look back and go, you know, and I'm not saying acceptable criminal activity. I mean, if it's criminal activity, I mean, that's a scumbag that need to be dealt with. But if you turn it around and kind of, you see addiction, you see people not seeking the help they do, I think you have to put it back up. I just feel sorry for those people, man. Like, I just feel like they are wasting such an amazing talent. And, you know, and the guy that we mentioned, I mean, is one of those. The frustration is that, geez, how could your life have gone if you were you know, in a different time frame, or had a different outlook on life? Like, you know, what an amazing opportunity you had. But
3 times.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what sucks, because I think as well, as a fan of music, and you clearly are a fan of music, as we all are, you know, and I think when we're in this scene, I think that's what hurts the most. You know, what happens if I had that opportunity? You know, and, you know, where would I be if I had that voice or that guitar skills or whatever it may be, or just in a big band or something like that? And but I think there's a bigger question of that, is that it's really, really easy, and I'm telling you this from experience, it's bloody easy to get down that road, because it doesn't just start of, oh, I'm going to smash some heroin today. Like, that's not how it works, you know. In a band, on a band, you really have an opportunity, and we're no means in the biggest band out there, but you have an opportunity to have whatever you want, and it's how you use that. You know, we have an opportunity to have what we want when we want it. And that is a horrible place to be in if you have no kind of judgment of what right or wrong is. You know, whether you're an alcoholic, or I'm telling you now that we have bottles of alcohol every night that are given to us for free, or drug dealers. Well, in the worlds of being in a band, drugs aren't seen as this horrible thing that are going to ruin your life and you're not going to be able to do your work, because actually most people that's in a band, they can probably function on drugs while they do their job. You know, and it's not frowned upon, you know. So it's hard, man. I don't believe in kind of, I don't respect it, but I can understand it, if that makes sense. I can understand how someone could get into that position. And then you're in a position where you're like, oh my God, like one day someone just wakes up and goes, Jesus, I wasted my life, which I can only see as a shameful thing, you know?
Yeah, I think the person who low, necessarily not how to say their name. You guys talk about Johnny, and while I do probably not be, those like him should take some full blame. I think he had, actually, I know he just, so I don't think it's out, Friends Free podcast, and there was a friend was like, dude, said this, and I don't want to give it away. So it went in, if it comes, that will a really eye. The thing about Johnny is, love him or hate him, dude, pretty much everything, which is shocking. Which usually that's kind of in recovery, as far as that's kind of usually one of the first things that sparks this thing, is you're willing to admit to yourself that you're the beginning of all the problems. Like, you need to fix your. Still having issues on my side? I see a lot of people commenting on that.
A little bit, bro.
Oh, okay. But basically, everybody gets to the point where they realize that they have to change themselves first and foremost, and then from there, the healing process and everything can kind of begin. And I don't know, with that dude, it seems like he wants to, and then just, I don't know, again, I don't know if that's the perpetual state of the lie that he's constantly in, lying to himself, lying to us.
But also, bro, it's one of those things that, you know, you hope that people realize that before something cataclysmic happens, whether they're in a point of no return, which I don't believe anyone is, but there are positions where people will get into horrible states, or you know, they end up not being here anymore, and that is real tragedy, you know, and it's such a cataclysmic waste of life, you know, and that sucks, man. Like I can't look at that from any other position of, I just feel sorry for that man. Like, and it's so easy in from a position of, that's the reason why I tangibly linked it to kind of mental health and the position that people feel when they're so debilitated or unable to help people, is that, you know, it's really, really easy for us to look like that. And it's also weird because we live in a world where we're so emotionally connected with people on this personal level. Dude, like, I think that you get what I'm talking about. I think you could listen to our music and love it and get the lyrics. But do you know what I go through? No. And do I know what you go through? No. But when we're in music, you know, when we listen to a band, we see them as a personality, we see them as a persona, and we see all the headlines and we see all of that stuff, and we just think, well, we know what they do in their spare time. I don't have a clue what Johnny Craig does in his spare time. I know that some of it's pretty shady and it probably shouldn't happen, but, you know, like, and I think it's easy, isn't it, for us to then go, well, I know that he had all the opportunities in the world to change, but actually, you know, and I'll bring it away from him, but like anyone in that position, you know, that it's really, really important that you, and I think this will be probably a first step for a lot of people, is you value yourself and your life and you love yourself. And I know that sounds really like holistic in its nature, but it's so, so important that we value ourselves and we look after ourselves and we give ourselves the opportunity to be better than what we are, because we're all on a journey of self-discovery and being better human beings and learning public interactions. And if anything's taught us over the last couple of years, it's all, you know, the last 10 years, is we need to educate ourselves on all things. Doesn't matter what I'm talking about, whether I'm talking about race, religion, sexuality, gender equality, inequalities of all kinds. We all need to take a good hard look at who we are, what we've said in the past, and what we're going to say in the future, what we're going to do in the future. I mean, that's the format, not just what we're going to say, what we're going to do differently in the future. And if everyone could kind of do that, I think you then have a really good overview of like yourself and what your part to play in this world is. But I think, you know, I think fundamentally the answer is, I just feel sorry for people that are in a position where they feel that is their part to play, and that's what they gratify on, you know?
Yeah, I don't, kind of getting off of the dead horse of the Johnny Craig thing. Onto maybe perhaps another dead horse. Well, I've been talking a lot about this, probably inconsistently over the last year and a half on the podcast. You know, social media and the impact that it's had, that are indifferent. Something I've kind of focused on is thinking about what our youth. I'll be 36 in like a couple of months. So I remember when the internet didn't exist, and, you know, being able to carry on at length, talking about a lot of different things, I don't want to say being knowledgeable on a lot of, but being able to talk about a lot of different shit. You just were enamored with life. You didn't have so many things pulled away. And now like when I go to bars, there might be 3 or 4 people and everyone's and you're not even having a conversation with people. So for me, it's one of those where I'm wondering if the social media is going to, next 10 years, we're going to see implications of it, where we culture where maybe you say something, no, I don't like you, so I don't have to see that. Be challenged way. And I think that's the thing that I'm worried. How you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably the same, man. I think for me, I think there's a lot of negatives and a lot of positives. I think we sit very much in the middle. I think the technological advancement of our race, I think we'll look back retrospectively at some point and kind of be like, whoa, like, because it's really hard to see, you know, when you think about the Industrial Revolution or the take it back to like the Bronze Age and the Iron Age, and then moving all the way up to the Industrial Revolution and all of that stuff. It's really easy to kind of look back and go, oh my God, like how did they come up with the light bulb, or how did they come up with electricity, and how did they come up with the internet, and all sorts of things. And when you go back, then it's really easy to do that. I do think we'll get to a point where we look back at this point and go, what an advancement. I mean, as you said, you know, it's only a couple of generations. You're only 6 years older than me. You know, I remember the days of dial-up and not really having internet, and it being kind of transitioning into Windows and how that looks, and, you know, desktop friendly, and then moving towards Wi-Fi, and then moving towards kind of touch screens and tablets. And, you know, and if we take it over 30 years, let's just take that kind of time frame. I mean, what the hell happened? Like, it's insane. The touch of a button, you know. I remember watching Minority Report avidly, and watching that movie and seeing them do all the tablet things and the movement and the stretching in and out, and it's all like this. And I look back, I remember thinking like, whoa, imagine if the world got to that. And then literally like 5 years later, or 10 years now, I suppose we are, and we've all got there. We're doing it right now, you know. And so the technological advancements, I think, are incredibly positive. I think another positive is that people can form their own opinions. They can link with people that have similar opinions to them, rightly or wrongly. So that also links with the other side of things, where people can gather steam, and who are appalling human beings and really shouldn't be allowed to have a public platform can now. So that sucks. But actually, you know, there's kids out there that, you know, are in perhaps countries that don't promote certain aspects of, you know, equality. Let's take equality and inclusivity, and that now can connect with people and see that actually they're normal, and that, you know, that's okay to feel in that way, or be that way, or be pissed off that you're not in that way. So that's a, you know, huge benefit. The access of information is absolutely unreal, like amazing. So, you know, when I said before you need to educate yourself, well, people can do that now. They don't need to go down to a library and pick up, you know, books about a certain subject, or, you know, and albeit that I'd like to see books continue, you know, rather than just digital online articles. But it's important that people can do that. Negative of that is that people can see everything. You know, they're exposed at an early age to stuff that, you know, I just want kids to go out and play, man. I just want kids to have social interactions with each other and understand the nuances of, like, you know, not saying something in a bad way, or how to make friends, or how to, you know, adapt themselves for social situations, which is the biggest key part of social interaction. Is that, you know, I know how I can adapt it when talking to you, and we've only just met. So it's like that's because of time after time learning about different interactions from the kid all the way up. And, you know, kids don't play anymore, man. Like, they get on shooting games, or they talk online, or it's all about Snapchat and stuff like that. And that sounds really old and really like archaic, but, you know, it's really important. It's fundamentally human nature to have those social interactions in your early years. But that being said, do the positives outweigh the negatives? I would say so. I think there's such an opportunity for connection now. I said this right at the start of, like, about COVID, and people are talking about social distancing everywhere. You write it down, oh my God, there's social distancing. There's no such thing as social distancing. It should be abolished from this world, because it's physical distancing. That is what we are doing through COVID. That's what we should be telling people to do, is you should be physically distancing from people. Social distancing, when you put it down on absolute core base level, means nothing. It actually means you're a recluse. So right. What we should be doing is more socially interactive with other people, but on a digital platform at this moment in time. You know, so I think it's powerful, man. We can have this conversation. We can talk about our opinions. We can interact, and it's great. And I think perhaps actually the transition to, like, face-to-face online stuff is a real benefit, because I think you can get those cues from each other. Not, albeit it doesn't replace, you know, face-to-face interactions, but you can get cues, you know, when you're talking, you know how that connected, you know, when I know when you're thinking about something because you looked over to the side, like, you know, it's that. But, you know, you look at those things, and that's really important, you know, and so, yeah, I don't know. I think you're right to be worried, but I think if everyone had a level of worry there, I think we'd be all right, because I think, you know, parents are responsible. They should be responsible. They should be looking after their kids and looking at what they're doing on screen time. And we should also, you know, Sacha Baron Cohen has recently put out a thing about Facebook, and there's a huge thing about Facebook about actually, you know, they need to have an element of control, albeit I don't want it to be fully mediated and blah, 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 and they can do what they want. But there's a level of like protecting the youth on what they see and hate speech and all of that stuff. I think it's really, really important. So we'll see a transition. I'm hoping so. I'm hoping over the next few years we start to see a little bit more common sense come into it, because we just run with pace, man. Like, we're just learning as fast as we can. FaceTime wasn't a thing 5 years ago. So it's crazy, man.
It was really weird. I was thinking of, and all the that I take in between podcasts, I don't remember where I heard. I can hear my audio being weird again. I don't know why. So I heard. Let's see. Why is it doing that? Really weird. Let's try that. All right. I don't need to echo on myself now. So it was kind of weird. Someone was talking about how they were one of the first to kind of bust through the door. Oh, it was Garza from Suicide Silence in regards to doing the digital world tour. And I kind of thought about that concept of being the first to do something, and just in a visual sense of like, you go through and then you're just like, holy shit, I'm here. Now what? And I've thought about how you could apply that to so many things, where if you know, we're the first connections and such do, that we're just out here kind of going, now what? Now what? Where do we go? And it made me laugh because I realized how accurate that message is.
Dude, it's so accurate, man. It touches a lot of notes there. You can only need to look at this current pandemic, and you know, we were learning at a slower rate than the virus was taking hold. And I think, you know, that's a crazy place to be in. But what we're not doing, what human race aren't good at, is taking a stop, a breather, and a readdress. You know, going, all right, okay, this is where we're at. Stock take. What now we've got those in places? How is this going to affect us in the future? How is that going to affect our kids in the future? What we tend to do is go, this is a really good idea. Oh my God, yeah, it's a really good idea. Is that going to sell? Is this going to make us lots of money? Okay, cool. You know, ethics and morality come 10th on the list, if not lower, you know, with people going, well, are we going to make money out of this? And is this easily replicable, or are we going to trademark it? And that is generally how people do things. So, you know, yeah, I think it's a really cool concept to think that's, you know, and it's very accurate about digital age of like, oh my God, it's an all-consuming beast now. How can you go to Mark Zuckerberg now and say you need to control this all-consuming beast? I think back to like Google and when that was set up, and like, how the hell can you manage that now? Like, the thought process just baffles my mind, you know, and these are hyper intelligent people that could never have foreseen how crazy this world or their digital innovations could be. You know, how could they? How could you view the internet is going to be what it is today? You couldn't. There's no one that's had that foresight. So, I
mean, seemingly some of the movies we've been referencing.
Yeah, mate, some of them did.
Did this with Lucius's technology to be able to hear everybody. You know, Minority Report being a good one, Future Crimes and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Something they haven't used. It's kind of weird when you kind of look back on some of this stuff.
It's crazy, man. It's all people say though, man, it's from a lot of science fiction is from a place of technology or technological advancements that they kind of feed that in. As much as I'm not going to go into any kind of conspiracy theories because we'll go down this horrible rabbit hole, but there's a very strong correlation between what is in development and what comes out as a movie for sure. I have to jump on to an interview at 6:30 just to let you know.
Yeah, I was going to actually start wrapping this up anyway.
Oh, I respect you.
So that was why I keep checking the time, because this in 6 minutes this will wrap up, but it'll give you a 2-minute warning. So I've been keeping an eye on time. Kind of lastly, I know technically the album doesn't come out for a couple more days, but you know, in talking to a lot of the band people that I have in the last few months, surprisingly everyone's writing new stuff. Are you guys taking advantage to find inspiration in everything right now, or are you just kind of like we got a record coming out. We're not even trying to like get in a room right now or even. Like,
I mean, Dorse, our guitarist, is definitely always writing. He's always getting riffs down on paper, and I'm always kind of writing lyrics. I think it's really hard with how personal this album and how crazy everything is to kind of remove myself from the campaign at the moment and kind of think, okay, next campaign. So I, you know, ask me again in a month's time, I probably will say I'm back on that horse. But like right now, it's just a bit, you know, all I'm focused on is people hearing this record of how I wanted them to hear it. And, you know, once that happens, I just want to enjoy it for a little bit. It's really easy to just go, right, next album, off we go. But, you know, as we said before, like it's so important we take those times to just enjoy the moment, you know, and that's what we're going to do with this album or certainly on Friday for sure.
well, lastly, I mean, I know we're on a form of social media, and so people probably know where to find you. But where can you or the band be found, and any of that kind of stuff you want to plug?
Yeah, I mean, you can find us everywhere. So we are in the world, we're worldwide. So yeah, no, every social media site we're on, it's usually just Buried Tomorrow. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, blah 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 blah. I'm on that Dan Buried Tomorrow. But then, you know, if people want to listen to us, it's streaming platforms, iTunes. I don't even think iTunes is a thing anymore. Apple Music, Spotify, Deezer, YouTube. All things. So yeah, just check us out. Listen to us. Don't listen to us. You know, talk to me online. I'm happy for people to have a chat with me and DM me and do all those kind of things. So yeah, I mean, it's all an open book from our point of view.
Well, I had a pleasure chatting with you. Maybe if you guys make it back to the States when touring,
We will. I promise you, we'll be back.
we'll hang out and maybe do another one of these.
Perfect, man. Thank you so much for this. I really appreciate it.
Good rest of your day.
See you later.